forgetting to start to record. Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's very easy to forget to record. I've done it quite a few times myself.
And people ask me why do you just record right away? So, it's always too late when you say, wow, I wish I recorded that. Or in this case, wow, I was supposed to record that.
Yeah.
I would listen to your links, and you're amazing. There's a lot there that I hadn't seen prior to these past couple of days that I really kind of been paying attention. I love the neutrality of your style. Yeah, the neutrality of it is beautiful. Actually, it's poetic in its own right, ironically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's neutral regardless of any appearance of non-neutrality.
Well, yeah, it's not. There's no position to defend and nothing to attack. In a very literal sense, I mean, I love the way you are very plainly spoken about some things. Without I don't get the sense that you feel like you need to explain certain things. It's just this way as it appears to yourself.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
But I was looking at your page online at Tim Cliss this, which is genius, by the way. I had to say Tim Cliss this page, right? I'm sorry, you froze up on me. Okay. Oh. Tim, you froze up on me, brother. You froze up on me, man. I can't get you. Are you getting me? We're having some audios. Tim left, and I think he might try to come back. I'm not sure. I might have to start another meeting if he doesn't come right back. So we'll see what happens. I'll check Messenger in a second if he needs to go to another. Let me see now. I'm not getting anything there, so we'll come back here. Oh, there he is. I'm sorry about that, Tim. Are you there?
Ah, there you are.
I'm sorry about that, brother. You there? Was that my fault?
I've no idea.
Me neither. Sorry about the hassle.
Well,
what I'll say. I'm sorry.
Guessing,
go ahead.
Well, I'm guessing because I lost your picture, you froze and then went. I'm guessing it was your internet somehow.
I won't doubt it. Let me see here. Oh, I was mentioning. I think right when we froze, Tim Cliss this the page is genius. That's genius. I love that. That is beautiful. And then there's a book out, The Deafening Silence. Do you want to talk about that at all?
We
you want to talk about any of that stuff? Anything you like?
Well, it doesn't really matter whether we talk about it or not. Yeah, the book. The title is deliberately paradoxical. In that, of course, the deafening silence can't be heard.
Right. I love it.
And it came out in one of my Zoom meetings. I said it, and I had quite a few comments. People liked it, so I thought, oh yeah, well that'll do for a book title.
It absolutely does. So do you have it out on audio? I tried to pick it up on audio. Do you have it out on audio?
No, I don't. I plan to do that, but no, it's not at the moment.
Yeah, I tried to get it earlier. I couldn't get it.
There is a story in that I did I did set up with a microphone in the bedroom and tried to do it. And I found it quite painful.
Yeah, that's harder than it sounds.
It is harder. It definitely is harder than
Yeah.
it sounds dead easy, but
Yeah.
actually when it comes to doing it, because you know, technically, well, actually just the physical process of setting it up and trying to speak the words in a, I don't know, in a natural way, not stilted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found it quite. found it a lot of effort and just gave up.
Yeah, I would definitely have to find somebody to do that for me if I could, if that's even available. That's nothing I could do. But I love the way the way you approach talking about this, however you'd like to say that, is not so serious. It's very it's very it, how should I say, light on the shoulders. You know, it's not very. I mean, you're not assuming anything. You're not taking anything away.
No,
And but that's not to say that it doesn't get deep on occasion. But it's
no,
almost, it
it's not.
seems, yeah, it almost seems like it's beautiful in its own right, in the lightness of it. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, invariably, and at least once in every one of your links, things get really interesting really fast. You know, it's you
It
make some
can do.
very
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, it's beautiful. I got some of these quotes here. You know, it seems simple, but at the time, you know, you are already empty. Is, you know, it's a pretty profound statement. You know, as you know, what exactly does that, like? Who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, all I'm ever speaking about is the absence of knowing who you are.
Yeah. Yes. And it's beautiful, but yet you speak of the body as if it exists, um, like in say a more traditional understanding of existence. Like there's almost like the body is an individual in time and space. It seems like.
I feel the body is undeniably real. Yeah.
Okay. And then, but then you say real is and is not real as well.
Yeah. But
In
as
what
real,
way?
well, as real as anything is real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Difficult to define that one. Reality.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that has been lost is an interest in debating. So, you know, I'm not very good in interview generally because I'm not interested in. You said about there's no interest in trying to explain, although I think there is some effort to explain in a direct, simple way.
Well, what I meant by that was I was listening to a lot of these the the links where, you know, people are calling up and asking you questions, and you
Yeah,
got to think on your feet. I mean, paradoxically, I'm saying, but no, it's amazing. A friend of mine that I love very dearly, Sarah, called you, and I think you were talking about the neutrality of this, and, you know, should haves and could haves, and you know, how that can be kind of, you know, I mean, anything should have or could have. You know, you're thinking about something maybe past or future,
yeah.
something like that.
But the thing about it is, I'm not suggesting that there's something wrong with should haves and could haves because they inevitably appear, but they don't mean anything. That's, you know, it's hard to talk about because everyone wants to know. So what's the difference? So
Well,
what is the difference you're talking about? And it is the very thing that you've spoken of already, which is the lightness of
the likeness.
the thought should have can appear, but
Mhm.
without it being I should have, without
Right.
that should have being my should have, without it being my could have, this is exactly the same and immeasurably different.
Yes, yes. So it's so the body, individual, and the self are being described as two separate entities. So much the self does not exist, but the body mechanism that the self seems to ride along with does. But it exists in a here in a, or like a not a here and a now, because there's no past or future, or is there a past and future? Do you know?
No,
Is that something that?
no. Well, there's only the past and the future appear, don't they?
So yeah, so it doesn't even really matter. What you're saying is that the body self mechanism is absolutely real, but there is no self attached to it.
Well, there's no
So
self. Well, the whole sense of self is of being inside, isn't it? There isn't.
Yes.
Really, all I'm ever speaking of is the seeming non-appearance, which can initially feel like absence. I will say, in the story, it feels over time less and less like absence, because the absence was only in contrast to presence.
Yes.
So it's all I'm ever really speaking about is the seeming absence of that sense of being inside.
So dimensionality means what? I mean, is just this a dimension? Is the body in a dimension?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No, I'm pretty poor with those kind of the existential or spiritual philosophical questions. Right. What seems to have happened here, I was very interested in those. Oh. And that seemed to have died along with the sense that I could find out. I think it's the undeniable unknowableness of life seems to nullify any interest in those questions.
Yes, yes.
Of so what is actually real? Well, when it seems incredibly obvious that life is just as it is, and just as it is not knowable. The interest in trying to know, trying to understand, trying to explain stops. And that is the very lightness that you spoke of at the beginning. The lightness is the absence of the one who needed to know. So
in that respect, is the self, I mean, like right this here now, what it appears to be us having a conversation. Yeah. Are there 2 points? Are there 2 people here?
Yeah, it appears so, yeah.
So there are others.
So there's 2 human beings speaking via this wonder of technology.
Wow. So what does non-duality mean?
And the illusion is that there's a self here speaking to a self there. And the reality is, for want of a better word, is there's two human beings.
So reality, but okay, so this is what I mean. Is this an expression, okay, or we're not 2 selves self-expressing, right? There's 2 human beings that are being expressed.
Yeah. Okay. You could say human being expressing itself, but not a self expressing as a human being.
Okay. So so there's no one thinking?
No.
Okay. There's no cause and effect?
No. There is appearance, but there's appearance of cause and effect. But yes. Of course, as soon as you talk about cause and effect, it's very obvious you're only telling a story.
Yes. Yeah, you can't know.
No, you can't know so what is happening can appear to have an effect. Yeah. And so then we infer, being clever sods that we are, we then infer that we know the cause.
I agree completely. Yes. Yes. And so I love this quote you had, and I saw one of the things: purposelessness and meaninglessness is love. And I would ask you to expand on that. I know it's way out of context, but not really. I'm thinking there's nothing outside the immediate experience. And maybe that's too deep as well. But it doesn't have it's not relative to any position, and therefore it's not a thing. So what appears to be 2 people having a conversation, whatever you want to say. I like the way you say it. It's beautiful. It's something that it's a different way to go about it. But like you were saying, you know, there's no really right or wrong way to say, to
No,
talk about this.
not at all. I think that's the freedom. The freedom that is spoken of often as liberation is
Yeah.
the freedom from the possibility of getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that sounds attractive. But of course, with the impossibility of getting it wrong comes the impossibility of getting it right.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that's the bit that self nearly always just overlooks, that, well, if it's impossible to get it wrong, of course it's impossible to get it right.
Right. Yeah. And that's the love of it, you know. And well, I think in the purposelessness and the meaninglessness of it, you were saying that's the love, and I had to agree.
Yeah,
It's the meaninglessness and the purposelessness is the love. It's beautiful.
without a doubt, it really is. And yet that's nearly always unacceptable to the sense of self that has been working so hard to get it right. You know how hard you know most selves work on their life, to get it right, to find whatever they've said they're looking for. And the wonder, the meaningless and pointlessness isn't meaningless or pointless without meaning or purpose. Now that's a great paradox. So it can sound as though, okay, so you think life is meaningless and purposeless. No, it doesn't mean in that, because with the death of purpose and meaning, meaningless and purposeless also become meaningless.
Yeah, you can't negate a dimension and then say that's not non-dimensional.
Absolutely. So if you negate one of the dualities, then the other one goes as well.
Right. And that would be from the self, you know. See, this is where it gets fun for me. The lack of other, in that I can't know, you know, where you're coming from. It appears to me now, I don't know for sure, but it seems to me as if you're saying that there is a body that exists in time and space, but it doesn't think there's no self attached to it, but it has a function somehow. And but that function has nothing to do with the self. It just has to do with keeping the body alive or something to that degree.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it a function of the body. It is, because that sounds as though it sounds as though the body's doing it, whereas the body, you know,
is being done.
You could say everything equally. The body is no different to any other appearance. Everything is already being done. Yeah.
So is there anything outside of immediate experience?
There isn't, is there?
No. So it's just an interesting look at what you're saying. The way it seems like from here, there are no others in a literal sense, in that I don't know that I exist in a literal sense. Like existence, it doesn't exist the way it seems to traditionally exist to the appearance of others. And so, and I cannot define any of that or know any of that to be objectively real. And so I just assume that it blooms out of nothing, and it is nothing, representing itself as others, you know, but I can't know myself, so how can I know another? And then
exactly. Well,
so
when you don't know who you are, I mean, it is quite shocking, or can be. I mean, that's dreadfully shocking in itself. Yes. But equally shocking is that without knowing myself, of course, there is the blatant obviousness that it's not that I can't know another, I never did. So everyone you said you knew, it's very obvious. Oh yeah, what a story that was.
Yeah. It is the story of me being, you know, the only thing girding me to the idea of sensation and body would be, or sensation, body, and that to me becomes part of the story. So the beautiful, you know, subtle difference between the way we approach this, and until today, I had to be honest with you, I didn't really see it, but now I kind of see where you're coming from, in that it's just beautiful. I had to digest it a little bit, but we're just approaching this thing in two separate, neither one of us is wrong. That's the beautiful thing.
No, there is one
It's
great,
beautiful.
I mean, one of the reasons I mean, that's the
Yeah.
unconditional love that,
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
there is no one at fault.
No. And yes, and you know what? That's an amazing. So would you say that? I mean, somebody asked me the other day about morality, and I said, well, how can I know? I mean, how can I know? I don't even know myself. And
Yeah, here morality seems pretty much the same as it always was, because because a morality is very much a conditioned way that a human being responds. But there, again, with morality, as everything else, the morality that this human being seems to have was never mine.
Yes.
And again, so moral, you could say moral judgments, ethical judgments, ethical reactions based on some morally conditioned. It's just completely natural. And and again, it's hugely liberating when it's very obvious that each human being just responds the way it does.
Yeah, it's the whole I don't care what happens thing. You know, it's hard for an individual to hear that, you know, but I don't care what happens.
That's not true. I mean, I would never say that.
Yeah, I don't want to get hacked to pieces. You know, I don't want that.
No, exactly. No, I mean, the whole illusion of self is that I'm keeping myself safe. Well, it was always the body naturally doing that.
Right. So the statement being paradoxical in its outset, I don't want to. Yeah, there's no you.
You know, and I don't know. I never did really get caught up in the non-dual speak either. So, you know, I use personal pronouns exactly as
all the time.
Yeah. And
I noticed that.
I think it's a bit of a trap. But
well, I noticed that. I noticed that about your links. So you do, go in one way or another into, fading different descriptions or definitions of those pronouns. Like you use them in different ways. But I agree with you. You know, I mean, the whole, let's talk to each other. Like, let's pretend this thing's a conversation. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is really what I'm speaking of, the ease and the lightness is the end of pretending.
Yeah.
There's no, because it was my defensive-ness, my self-consciousness, my fear of getting it wrong, fear of saying the wrong thing, that got in the way of just naturally being whatever.
I actually wrote that down here on one of your links. You said, do you ever get react, or are you more or less reactionary? And you were saying, no, if anything, I'm more reactionary.
Yeah, I am. most people I know, most people would say, more reactionary. Yeah.
I love that. So you were a teacher for 20 years?
29, 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, no wonder. I mean, hats off to you. 29 years of teaching. That's incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's not as grand as it sounds. Most of that time I was a sports teacher. So, that was really going out 5 times a day and playing with a group of kids.
Right. Well, I mean, that's not nothing.
No, it was, but what I mean is when it was that, then it was work, of course, and it was hard work, but it didn't feel like work, a lot of that. Different to being in a classroom. In a classroom, it felt much more like work. Yes,
the constriction of like your ability to use certain words and stuff. You're talking about cussing and things like that, and I can just imagine, just being freed of a contract and dropping F-bombs all over the place.
Yeah, I got in trouble a few times for being a bit free with language.
Speaking of freedom and fear, I mean, as it relates to nothing, there's a tremendous amount of, there's a lot of different stories that float around, and we're just telling each other stories. But what is there anything to fear? I mean,
Well, I have the sense that the greatest fear that self has is nothingness.
nothing. Yeah.
That's what's feared the most. And one of the motivations, I guess, one of the most compassionate elements of speaking about this is to tell as many human beings who can hear it that nothing is nothing to fear.
Mm-hmm.
That emptiness is empty. It's nothing to fear.
Right. So,
and the reason I say that is because the story that self tells is, so I am living my life at present, and this is my full life, and it can sound nihilistic to say, well, this is already nothing, appearing as everything. Mm-hmm. And so the emptiness is already, it's not waiting. There isn't, so death is not waiting for you somewhere in the future, which is most selves' greatest fear, the fear that in nothing there is only annihilation.
So you believe you were born, you're living now, and you will die, your body.
No, I wouldn't say I believe that. I mean, the story of it, the story of the birth of a baby who was named, and yeah, there's the story of it.
Is that actual?
Do I believe it? But no, not at all. It's hard to describe the difference, but it's a real story. There you go. That's the reality it has.
I like that. It's a real story.
It has the reality of a real story.
I love that. Well, I was going to ask you, the difference between you, because we're saying there's no others, but you like to talk to as many human beings as possible. And I just like to play with that language in that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the other thing, in terms of others, of course, there are other human beings. There's others, others, but they're not other me's. And again, it's really no difference at all, and yet immeasurably different to meet human beings as other human beings, not as other selves, not as other me.
So what does non-duality mean to you? What does non-duality mean? What does not to mean?
It really does mean exactly what it says. That everything appearing as all the separate things, all the separate experiences, all the separate happenings, all the separate objects, all the separate thoughts, all the separate feelings, everything that makes up what we call human experience, human life, they're really not separate. Everything is inseparable. And you could say it's one happening, but that's misleading, because there isn't one happening, because the happening really isn't happening.
Happening, not happening, it's simultaneously, and things and not things.
The ultimate not two. If you think of, in terms of the not, so everything is not two. So everything that we've taken, that language is essentially dualistic in that language works in opposites, and of course it works in subject and object, and non-duality is simply saying that's an illusion. There isn't that separation between subject and object.
So there are no two people having a conversation.
There's the appearance of two human beings having a conversation.
And are we exchanging information?
It seems
is there knowledge?
Yeah, no, there's appearance of knowledge. Yeah.
The appearance of knowledge, but it's not that. It's like this is not to expressing itself as, I'm using loose language here, of course, but expressing itself as two people having a conversation that appear to be exchanging information through time and space.
It does appear that way. Yeah.
But it's not that.
No, there's no knowing what it is.
So
That's
yeah,
that, you know, so the illusion of knowledge is that I really do want to know what's really going on. So this appears to be going on, but what's really going on? I mean, you could say that is the essence of philosophy and spirituality, looking for, I want to know what's behind the appearance. And really all non-duality is ever saying is there's nothing behind the appearance.
Right. So there are no actual others. You know, there just appears to be. And so the human being is what? In that, like, I appear to have a body. I self have appear to have a body, but I don't have a definition. There is no me. So this body in this immediate experience is not separate from what it's observing. So
no.
So what is a human being?
Clever monkey.
I mean, it's just, yeah, it's beautiful.
Too clever for his own good. Oh, most beautiful. What's most beautiful? What's most beautiful in this wondrous appearance of beauty and horror and ugliness? But what's the most beautiful? Human beings. What's the most ugly? Human beings.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, and you know, that's the thing. It's like it's almost it's analogous to like words don't even really exist. If there's no separation, we're not really talking. We're not. So to say that like there's something beyond us or something that is that we can know is ridiculous, because there's no basis for that. So we're just stories telling stories. You know, it's beautiful.
Yeah. You know, and without them being my or your stories, and stories that are more true or less true, or more or closer to reality or further away, without that, all the stories, you know, there'll still be boring stories and interesting stories, because each human being has a preference for what it likes to listen to. But shit, they're all empty, Howard. That's the love. The love is in the complete and utter insignificance.
Well, I really love that, because lately I've been interviewing a lot of my friends, you know, and some of them are, you know, I mean, they're like, you know, nobody knows who they are, you know, they're like me, you know, I mean, it's like anybody else. It's just like nobody knows who they are. So it's like, I mean, and I'm interviewing each and every one of them has this just complete and total elaborate different way of seeing life. It's so amazing to me, you know, and you know,
it is amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
every one of them.
I mean, that's a wonder in itself.
Yeah, it actually is. Like, every person I meet has a different take, and it's so amazing, because there's so many people out there. It's like I mean, it's just like a wealth of stories, if that's what you're into.
Yeah,
and that's all it could ever be.
And when everything is just seen as, so you may say to yourself, oh yeah, but I really like his story, but his story I'm not so keen on, I'm not sure. So what self tends to do is go, well, because I like that one, that must be closer to the truth. Well, it's not. It's pure preference.
Yeah, right. It has no basis.
No.
Like to say reality or not reality is much like dimensional. You can't say it's a dimension or not a dimension. It's just beyond that. It's not even that, you know. Yeah.
No, and I mean, I don't ever speak about that kind of thing, because there is no the preference, it seems here, is to, there's no interest in that, you know. And I'm much more interested in, you know, still just naturally more interested in football and golf than I am.
That was one that I wanted to ask you. Do you have a favorite golf course? I mean, yeah, I mean, because I used to play, and you know,
well, yeah,
St. Andrews.
I'm liking the look of Pebble Beach.
Oh, Pebble! Can you imagine? Oh, I'd love
Oh,
to play around.
I mean, I've seen it many times on TV and just gone, whoa, there's,
Wow. Oh,
now that's where I want to play.
oh, oh, definitely. I agree with you. Pebble Beach,
Oh,
17.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, definitely. We do
absolutely the best.
I don't live too far from the coast, and North Norfolk, around East Anglia in England, there's some wonderful cliff top links courses, which are really beautiful. So one of my favorites is Sheringham. There you go. You can have a look up on the internet, Sheringham Golf Club.
Oh, okay,
And
absolutely.
next to it is Royal Cromer, and just along is Hunstanton. They're all very beautiful coastal courses.
Oh, I read a book a couple years back. These guys took a sail up there with St. Augustus Open, just like the first night. What do they call that when it first opened? And I thought that was amazing. You know, they were describing the course. They were saying, "Oh, this is supposed to be going to be the best golf course in the world," and it still is beautiful, amazing. I would never take out anything more than a 5-iron. I just punch it up the middle at St.
That's
Augustine.
right. Keep it low.
Oh man, come on.
It's so true. In a gale, when it's blowing a gale over the cliff.
Well, now that we got on the serious subjects, well, how about did you want to end on anything? I mean, I could talk. You know, I have a bunch of I have a bunch of stuff here, but what I was thinking of more in the lines of asking you, asking you about. I love this idea of human beings in this immediate experience, and the differentiation between human beings, as you refer to them, or others, and the difference between that. Is there something that I could press you on to kind of talk about that? You know, what is a human being and what is an other?
They're always the hardest questions if you try and say what the difference is.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's when words really, you know, I can talk about the absence of duality, but then there is the appearance of duality, and really duality and non-duality are not two. That's really what non-duality is.
And it's neither, and it's both, and it's something else entirely.
So the appearance of duality is exactly the same, and yet there is an immeasurable difference between seeing others as another me and just meeting another human being.
Yes. Well, what do you mean by another me? Like, what exactly?
Well, what I mean is, what every self does is infers another self on the human being. So if I meet someone, I just infer their I, and that's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to a human being. I'm talking to another I. And because I know myself, of course, then I can know them.
Yeah, you can know them, and in that way, it's impossible to even comprehend, the lack of a cause and just the appearance of an effect without the cause. It seems to me that when you're a self that's looking at another self, you're thinking of their birth, their life, their death, the whole story of this entire immediate experience being actually showing a real universe in time and space.
And the thing that the most seems to get in the way of natural relating to when meeting another human being is this self-consciousness, this fear I have for myself, and that social fear that I am a vulnerable little me inside this body, and there's another me, and they're dangerous as hell. Don't get me wrong, they're attractive. They may be able to offer me what I'm looking for, but I'm always afraid. So there's always this sense of fear in meeting the other. There's a longing and there's a fear, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah, the vulnerability involved in trust. Yeah, and so we can talk about, we can kind of segue into unconditional love in this respect, in that anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
That's the unconditional nature of this. That's
yeah,
what that's really the bit that isn't really attractive to self when it hears non-duality. The thing that's most terrifying is the absolute freedom, which is absolutely anarchic in a way that self's idea of anarchy, it just pales into total insignificance. Is, you know, it's like a petty small anarchy, whereas we're talking about this is already absolutely free.
yeah.
And
It's not. Sorry, go ahead, please.
and that freedom is completely, really, in an absolute sense, unknowable. And of course, if it's unknowable, there is, what is the point of me attempting to control, attempting to manipulate, to manage what is coming out? And that's the freedom.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful because I can see that we're coming at it from two different tributaries here, but it's the same thing. Ultimately, there's no one thinking, and it's not a self doing something. It's more of a being done without, I say, the marionette without the strings, you know. But we're just birds chirping in trees, really, because, you know, there is no foundation in which to make any of this absolute, no matter how you look at it. And that is just this, you know.
And there is, I have to say, I mean, one thing with the seeming death of me, or the absence of the one who was in control, there's no sense of this even being done, because being done just has a flavor and an essence of, oh, there is still a doer, it's just not me.
Yeah,
No,
and
it's
I
like
agree.
there's no, you know, there is no cosmic doer.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I do use that a bit. It's an effect without the appearance of a cause, but it actually ceases to look like an effect. It just is, you know, and it's not even, you know, it's beautiful in that neutral sense, in that it's neither or, both happening as something else, and you know, something to that effect. Yeah.
If it's neither or and both, then that is the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, it is just is. And that is truly a bird chirping in a tree. I mean, it literally means nothing, but at the same time, that's what we're talking about. It literally is nothing.
And what we're speaking about is meeting. So just a bird chirping in a tree, or a human being speaking about non-duality.
Boom, you know, dogs barking. It truly is foundationless in every respect, no matter which way you want to go about it. But what I'm fascinated with is the way you got there in this way. It's I like it. I had to spend a little time kind of getting used to the way you've done it, but it's beautiful. I have to say, it's actually, you know, at first I was like, well, you know, there was two, you know, it's like, oh, okay. But now that I've actually listened to it and seen what you're saying, paid a little bit more attention, and all this is loose paradoxical talk, but no, it actually does. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thanks,
because
man.
no matter which way you go with it, there is no ultimate answer.
No.
There are no questions or answers ultimately.
No, and really, you know, the lightness that you spoke about, I like the word lightness.
Yeah, lightness.
And really, that's the difference. You know, my life was very heavy. It was it was a huge burden.
Yes.
And that's worth talking about. That is worth sharing for what it's worth.
Do you want to elaborate? Like what did you cast off, or how did that feel? In any way, did you want to elaborate on that? Are you there, Tim?
Yeah, sorry, I've just got. No,
Howard, the deafening silence.
Yeah. There it was. There's your best.
There it was.
There's your best answer.
Yeah.
the wonder is that life is at peace. This is at peace, regardless of what appears. All appearances are utterly empty. Empty of everything that we said they were full of, which was their realness. Now they still appear real, so the appearance is real, but that realness is completely unknowable and is utterly empty of everything I said it was full of, which was substance, its meaning, its purpose, its separateness, its objectivity. It just doesn't have it, and yet there it is, appearing as real. And in a very, again, hugely paradoxical way, life is much more real without my interpretation and the space between real life and me, life happening to me.
Yeah.
There's no distance between. So in that way, it's like life is slapping you in the face.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. It's actually, the unrealness of it is more real.
Yeah.
And the meaninglessness of it is more real, or is more meaningful.
How is that sensible?
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense.
No.
I wrote a post today. It just came to me as I was listening to your links. Actually, the most beautiful thing about thinglessness are all the beautiful things.
It's really cool. No,
I was like, thanks, Tim. I appreciate that.
No, that's great.
That was perfect.
Yeah, all the beautiful things are all the more beautiful. How?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense, but well, I noticed you light up when you talk about the Tim Cliss, the page, and is that like just something that you've been having fun with? I mean, what is that about?
No, it's just what is that about? I don't know. It's just yeah, I do love it. Two of my friends set it up and made it for me. So, but it's got. I just think it's beautiful. I was just in awe when it was shown to me. You know, so I sent photographs and videos, and then they put it together. And for me, it's. I
keep messing with mine.
It's like a work of art, and it is beautiful, and it's lovely. So it's I post stuff on Facebook if it comes. Usually it's late at night. It's usually when I'm just lying it's like between waking and sleeping, and then some words appear, and I usually put them on Facebook, and then I put them onto the website. And I like the videos as well, and I also like the paradox that it's really it's quite personal. You know, they're all my home videos that are on there, and that's sort of like playing with the whole notion of, you know, the death of the personal in non-duality. It's not true, by the way.
How do you mean?
There's just no personal. There's no person impersonal. So the whole. Because there is this, there seems a myth that non-duality is talking about some kind of detachment, some kind of death of a personal life. I couldn't disagree more. It's just not my personal life. It never was. So all it feels like is liberation for that whole story. Of personal life is freed from it being mine. It was never mine. It was just another beautiful story.
I can't agree more. It's funny. It's that whole the paradox of saying I've lost myself. Okay, well, yeah, you've lost yourself. You lost your story, but this whole subject object concept, uh, you know, this whole entire thing comes through this portal of this story, the same guy, but it's just not you. There is no self. It's just the story, and you
Yeah,
can see it for what it is. So you don't lose. It's just the beauty of it is, like you said, the lightness of it is, it's just, it's so beautiful because it is just a story, but there's
yeah,
no more of that, you know it just doesn't mean what it used to mean. It just doesn't
no,
mean the same thing at all. It just isn't the same thing. It just simply is funny.
yeah.
And
Oh no, no,
it's just,
no. Life is much more funny without me.
it's hilarious. Yeah. Yes. And even
By the
even when I
way,
get
it's also more. It's much more.
everything.
Obviously, it's much more obviously sad as well. So there is. This isn't spoken about much, and I feel it ought to be spoken about more, because in the seeming loss of my life, there is a great mourning, there is a great melancholy,
Yeah.
there is, but again, but with a lightness, again, it's impossible to really speak about. But sadness is, because there isn't actually anything that exists, any things that exist, there really isn't.
Can I
So,
can I ask? Can I press you on that?
yeah,
Is there a difference? Now, can you talk about the difference between nothing and no hyphen thing?
sorry, nothing and what, Howard?
No hyphen thing. There's a difference between nothing and no hyphen thing, right? I mean, that's what you were just kind of alluding to. And I think I blew your flow there. I'm sorry. The
That's all
the
right.
thing is,
Don't break my flow, Howard. That's the end of it. If I get out of flow, then it stops.
well, it's
Um, is there a difference? Well, yeah. Well, I think when most people speak about no thing, they're talking about the fact that there's appearance of separate things, but really there are no things. Yeah, that's the no thing, and nothing is just another way of talking about what can't be spoken about: stillness, silence, emptiness. That's it.
and how, yeah, and that's all just the funny thing is that it's all this appearance of separation, but it's the expression of separation as not two. And
Yeah,
as you just said, everything else in between. But it's simply the story of it now, and
because
not necessarily. There's nothing
I
to
mean,
live
I
for.
was waiting. I was waiting until I saw non-duality.
So can you talk about that? I mean,
Well, yeah,
what's
I think that was if you become a seeker, if you've got this longing, this yearning to know, which can be all-consuming. It can seem to consume a human being's life. This search for meaning, search for purpose, search for truth, search for reality. And I heard the non-dual message, and it bit me. You could say the tiger bit me, or I got infected. And I couldn't find an antidote, and it did become all-consuming. And I was always waiting until I would know, even though I'd heard 1,000 times that it was about not knowing. That's almost universally ignored by self, because self lives in a world of knowing.
If we could look at each other as if we were two individuals exchanging information, there is absolutely no way that you can understand. It's not a knowing. It's not an understanding. It's not, there's no way that you can, because it's just not a you involved. And it's,
I don't know, you may have heard me, but I've said this a lot, but one of the great losses, what I cried, and I did it seemingly, I cried for weeks when it was obvious that all my learning and all my knowledge and all my insights were completely for nothing. They were empty. And that seemed, that seemed to take a long while to mourn the loss. That seemed the greatest loss of all.
It's almost as if the longer somebody's in it, see, I'm just again drunk in language, but sometimes it seems like some of the more pro like seekers, they know how to ask all the questions, and they have all the different genres, and they've got all the information and all the different teachers and all this stuff, and you have all this information, and it's literally nothing. It is absolutely throw that away. Talk, let's pretend to have a conversation right here, right now. Let all of just throw that away. It doesn't mean anything.
I know.
Literally.
It really doesn't know. But I mean, you can't, there's no point in saying that to selves, because self will hold on to, because I live in knowing.
Yeah, knowing. I know.
I know. And I know what I don't know. That's the other thing that self really lives in. I know what I don't know and what I need to find out and need to understand, because that's really where self lives.
Absolutely. Like it's the full on confrontational kind of, I need you to verify what I am saying is right. Yeah. And where I'm on the right path, right? Yeah, you're on the right path. I mean, but
because self will virtually always, will agree that I'm not there yet, but I'm not. Don't tell me I'm not on the right path.
Right. Yeah, it's. I don't know, man. It's pretty funny though. It's what I'm saying is that it's amazing to me that you were able to see it after so long, and I'm just curious: is there an anecdote or a story you can tell me about that? Like, how did it occur to you? That, oh my God, there's no self. Yeah, like for me, I remember at one point.
I really think that is worth talking about. Yeah, I can talk about that. Because the most obvious thing that there was no recognition of no self. No, never was, never, and there isn't. So there was nothing to recognize the absence of something that never was. There was no recognition. I mean, talk about disappointment. That must be the shittest enlightenment story of all time.
Well, can you give me a rundown? Were you at dinner? I mean, were you at the library?
No, I really. So in this, you could say, post the absence of me, there was no recognition of it. No, and the only thing I could do. So I would say even now, there is no recognition. Well, of course, there's nothing to recognize the absence of something.
Right.
There is the only thing that was recognized, you could say, and it's not a recognition really. It's the wrong word, but we haven't got a better one, I don't think.
And this is like a gradual falling away kind of story.
Well, it certainly didn't happen all in one go. No.
Okay. So there was no recognition of before and after. You could say it was just obvious that there could never be a before and after. Yeah, it's the story itself is not actual, obviously, but it's an interesting story in that it's unlike, so it's almost how should I say, anarchistic, rebellious towards the Enlightenment story, in that it's anti-Enlightenment story,
Yeah, it's really neutral about enlightenment. Enlightenment is just another lovely fantasy that self tells itself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what could be, what is it?
I mean, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that there aren't any human beings that feel that they're enlightened.
Right. Well, what I'm saying
I'm pretty sure there are human beings who feel they're enlightened.
Well, like with your story though, your enlightenment and your quote, however you want to say that, it is literally like the anti-enlightenment story, because you don't even have a story.
No, not really. I mean, I have stories before about awakening experiences. I can tell stories of those, but they have no. They're just, again, they're not of any significance at all.
So you never have like a slip, the whole, you're never caught in the world of things and have a slip into like like literally thinglessness. That kind of self story doesn't happen ever.
No, the story happens just the same.
Okay. So like you can feel as if you are falling into
No.
an abyss.
No,
That never happens.
No. It's like there is only the abyss.
There is only the abyss, but and this of course is it.
And this is the abyss.
So the story, for me, the story can get fairly infinite, and but it's also finite, and that's all just a story. But yeah, there's yeah, that's interesting, but it's also beautiful. So there's never a slip.
No, and that's what, there was a long period before, in my story, there's a long period of seeming evisceration, of being torn apart, of being life coming to kill me.
So it never feels like you're like melding into thinglessness ever. Okay.
No, because there's no one to meld anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, there's no way to say that.
But yeah,
whatever.
don't get me wrong.
I mean, into nothingness. How does that work?
No, because there's no one to become nothing. There is just everything is
nothing. And that never happens. And it's something, I guess, to be envied in a way. I guess. I'm not sure. Yeah, my story's different. But I don't think it's right or wrong. I think my story's a story.
But everyone's Howard, everyone has a unique story.
Yeah, it's just a story. It doesn't mean anything. But yeah, it gets fun to talk about though. I really do love it.
Oh yeah, it is fun. Yeah. One thing I would say, the only thing, so the absence, so this idea of I'll know when I know me. That's really the carrot dangled in front of self, that here's non-duality, that then I will know when it's happened, when self has fallen away or evaporated, or whatever stories you've heard of. Well, the reality is that there is no self to fall away.
Yeah.
So there was no recognition of the absence of me.
Right.
There is none. There is nothing to recognize. What is this is the hardest thing to try and emphasize, is how obvious the emptiness of everything, of this that we've called life, how empty it is, which is not seen. It's not the best way I've got to describe it is it's felt, but it's not a feeling as in a sensation, but it's overwhelmingly obvious that this is empty, as well as being full of all the beautiful and terrible and ugly and wonderful things. So the thingness and the no thingness are not two. Everything and nothing are not two. And that's, it sounds trite because you've heard it 1,000 times. I'd heard it 1,000 times from dozens of different speakers. And you go, oh yeah, obviously.
I think sometimes it seems like, excuse me, that sometimes I say seeker, so the other humans will say, it doesn't seem so obvious to them. And what I'll say is, try to imagine that it's not a cycle of events. Try to imagine that it's not one after another, but simultaneously empty fullness, in that there is nothing outside of this immediate experience. There's nothing other than this immediate experience. And so it's not relative to another position. So this is not a story of separation in a literal sense. It's more of an appearance of separation relative to no other position. I mean, it's, I mean, I can, you know,
no, that's as attempts to explain it, Howard. That's good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's
No, it is, because it's impossible to explain. But you know, we can make some fumbling, futile attempts. And that's how I feel when I'm speaking.
Yeah.
But there is a great love of speaking about it. Now, again, people ask me, well, why are you doing it if there's no point? I went, well, I enjoy it. That's why.
Right. Well, there's no point to that. That's the beauty of it, as you say. You know, there's no point to anything.
That makes
the
it
pointlessness of it is what makes it so beautiful.
And what makes it easy, because it is easy to speak about this.
Yes, you know, it's definitely. I think that particularly when you're speaking with somebody that understands that each conversation is going to have a language of its own, particularly, you know, as soon as you, especially when you're talking to new people that know about this kind of stuff, you start to get to understand each other's vocabulary within the context of that communication. And everybody's got their own communication. That whole appearance, everybody's language is unique to that conversation, and that conversation can carry on for years, or it could be passing in the night. But the reality of it is, the words are truly, they appear and they seem to mean something in that moment, and then are gone forever. It's just that word will never mean the same thing ever again, you know.
And again, I mean, great, incredibly paradoxical again, that words are all the more beautiful for their emptiness.
And for that, yes.
Much more.
I totally agree. Much like music. You know, the people that give their music away, for example, and they say, you know, once I play it, it's not mine anymore anyways. And the music kind of plays me when it's really good. So it doesn't, and in that way, I say the same thing. You know, same with writing or anything. When it's really good, there's no me involved at all. And in that respect, it's just out. And it just, I just love it, you know, when you you know, like you say, paradoxically share in this way. It just seems like the further you get away from meaning and purpose and reason, the more beautiful it becomes.
It does seem that way.
Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks, Howard. A pleasure to meet you properly.
Yes, and I really appreciate you giving me this time. I mean, it's really kind of you, sir, and I thank you.
No, not at all. Pleasure.
All right. Hopefully, I'll give you a holler, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, sure, Howard. Yeah, I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Right back at you, sir. Thanks again. It was beautiful, man. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you, Howard.
See you later, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.